Hello again. I'm with Chris Turner, who's the author of a new book called The Geography of Hope, and he's been speaking to us today at the Pathways to Sustainability Conference in Red Deer. Boy, I hope you have less trouble than I do. It's been so busy here, and you've had so many people come up to talk to you about your new book. You started with Planet Simpson as a writer in the early part of the last decade, and now you're here doing what you're doing.
Right. So Planet Simpson, in a sense, was using the Simpsons TV show to sort of diagnose all the world's ills, I guess you could say. And Geography of Hope, in some sense, was my kind of hunt in the dark for things that worked. So there was a bit of a continuum there. And the new book, The Great Leap Sideways, which will be out in September of this year, kind of takes that one step further and says, okay, we now know what the solutions are. How do we get there? What is that process by which, an organization, a community, a whole country goes from what isn't working to what is working? The work I do these days is really inspiring and really fun. You get to find things that work and tell people about them.
Well, Chris Turner, it's certainly true the way you spoke this morning is that your glass is half full. And that said, is this a function of journalism, just getting the story out now, or is this just something that's going on planet-wide where people are beginning to pay attention to what's happening underneath their own feet, let alone what's going on in different parts of the world?
There's a whole variety of things happening at once. So part of it is that these tools and these approaches to sustainable living are becoming more widespread, which gives more people a chance to see them. And once you see them, you're going to want some. I mean, I showed a picture earlier today of a house that produces more energy than it uses, makes people money for them. Anyone who sees that is going to want a piece of that. That's just a universally positive thing for anyone who owns a house. So that's one part. The other thing, though, that of course has happened is that I think we're feeling the nearness of the crisis a lot more than maybe we were a few years ago, starting with the financial unraveling of 2008. But really, it's pretty hard now to make a case that business as usual has a big long-term future. I mean, that's a very difficult proposition to make, I think, for most people. They can kind of feel, whether it's climate, whether it's energy, whether it's finance, that these things are not on very strong ground anymore, and we really do have to kind of, rethink things from the ground up. I wanted to somehow look at this. It began with the climate problem, but sort of, many things lead out from there, and figure out if there was a way to confront it that was not ultimately despairing. And the great thing about that was not only were there ways to look at it that wasn't despairing, there was way more going on than I had any idea about. When I started the research for the Geography of Hope, a lot of this stuff was sort of just coming from fringe to mainstream, but now it's, it's everywhere, particularly in some of the places that I talk about the most, like Germany, for example, Northern Europe generally, where, this is being, woven into the fabric of everyday life. And not just is there no pain, it's actually enhancing life in the places where it's been adopted.
A couple more questions, because I know there's more than a few people who would like to talk to you here at the conference. I've just made you God, king for the day. You can do anything you want on the planet Earth, let alone the universe. Given what you know now about the things that perhaps you have an opportunity to see happen in your lifetime, as God, you can do one thing. Okay. What would it be?
Well, it's going to sound very mundane. I would pass a universal feed-in tariff for the entire planet, which would mandate basically higher prices to be paid for renewable energy sources versus non-renewable ones. And as it has worked in Germany and across Europe and now in the province of Ontario, it would immediately move us many, many steps down the road toward abandoning fossil fuels forever.
Is this a legislative problem that you see as God, or is this something that happens at the local level through moral persuasion?
I think it's all of the above. But I do think that you can do a much better job than we're currently doing of what I call the choice architecture. Most people, for understandable reasons in their daily lives, don't want to think a lot about where their power comes from, how their food's procured, what kind of chemicals are in their cosmetics, these sorts of things. What we would like is for the bad stuff to be taken out and the good stuff put in, and have that just be an automatic thing. I think that's where most of us would like to be. You ask people, would you like renewable energy? Yes, of course we would. Of course we'd like solar panels on all our roofs. Okay, so how do we make that happen? And that's what this German legislation, this feed-in tariff does, is say, okay, well, this is a very, very simple tool that will strongly encourage that and open up huge opportunities for you as average citizens, if you do want to get more involved, to make some of your own power.
Chris, is there anything you'd like to leave us with that I haven't touched upon or you didn't have an opportunity to talk about today to the conference? Is there anything that comes to mind?
I can't think of anything offhand except to say that I really do feel like there is although there is a lot of gloom on the horizon, if you look in certain directions, it is really extraordinary how quickly things are moving in other directions. And I could pick any random example. I've been talking about Germany. In the first 8 months of 2010, Germany added a gigawatt of solar to its grid. That's 1,000 megawatts of solar, which is more solar power than existed on planet Earth 10 years ago. So they've done all of the solar and more that existed 10 years ago in 8 months in one country. And so this is a sense of just how quickly things are moving in some places and how far we can get to where we need to go. Really, with a lot less pain than we are currently being told it would cause us. We certainly in this country, for example, have leadership that is telling us that it would be an economic disaster to move this quickly toward a post-fossil fuel economy. That's simply not the case anywhere they've done it. It's just a flat-out lie, basically.
Chris Turner, thanks very much for your time, but especially your thoughts.
My pleasure. Enjoy the rest of the conference.